Frances, you've been a teacher, educator, and studied educator preparation. Let's hear from you.
Okay, I'm in the trenches right now. I am directing a teacher ed program at the University of Pennsylvania. Actually, two teacher ed programs. So I want to talk with you today about the work of teacher ed in a different way. I am so respectful of the work that you all are doing, and I was particularly interested in the CAP report because it provides a diagram, a model for what I think needs to happen in teacher ed. So let me start with two things that are very close to my heart right now. One is complexity theory. I have really come to the conclusion that we simply can't think of preparation of teachers all by itself. It absolutely is connected to so many other systems that you touch one part of it and there is going to be fallout in a number of other ways that you sometimes can't even think about. The other piece that I'm working very closely with is the idea of design theory. I have children and grandchildren who are, and a husband who are involved in startups. And this is very much a part of the way people think, and rapid prototyping is another way. So I think constantly about the slowness of preparing a teacher and supporting teachers over their professional life, and the quickness with which one needs to respond to the everyday needs of children every second of every day. It's a kind of agility that I don't think we don't hear in the policy arena. So I'm going to start with backward design and ask what it is, who it is that we want to see come out of a teacher ed program. And I'm going to say that I think about teacher ed as the pursuit not just of the pre-service, but I often show a line, an arrow that begins in a child's first experience of school, and now most children have experienced childcare from their earliest days until they get to teacher ed, and then way beyond until the teachers actually retire from the profession. So that is an entire lifetime. When I think about the development of expertise, I often call on Malcolm Gladwell and the 15,000 hours it takes to prepare to become an expert. Now, if you remember Gladwell, I want you to know that that's 421 24-hour days. Can't possibly get that 15,000 hours into any teacher ed program. Another reason not to think of it as just preparation. Okay. But there are three parts of Malcolm Gladwell's notion of expertise. One is that expertise develops because somebody wants to become an expert at it. Okay, so there's the interest of the learner. A second piece about expertise is that it develops in community. There is somebody supporting the learner. And the third is the time to do it, the time to get better at it. Now, I think if we take this notion and look at backward design, we could say, what would an expert teacher look like? How long would it take? Well, if we go with the 15,000 hours, let's at least give people 2 or 3 years. I'm much more in the place of, let's give them 5 years. And let's come to the place where something like the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards becomes our way of saying, okay, here's a place where expertise is developing and could be moving on because the national board teachers recertify every 5 years. So let's look at these 5-year chunks. Okay. Now I'm going to step into Berliner's notion of the development of expertise. Berliner has 5 levels on the development of expertise. One is the novice level. I think that's what we're talking about, is the novice level. This is what we do in pre-service. The second is an advanced beginner. And Berliner says that this person is an insightful person. That's what I look for in first and second year teachers. The kind of insightfulness that we have tried to embed in our teacher ed program, where inquiry is at the core of their work. They are constantly doing formative assessment. They are figuring out who's paying attention, and what kind of sense children are making of what they're doing. Then he says the third level is a competent teacher, and that person is working from important decisions. They're looking at what they're doing and they're trying to make sense of it, and they're purposefully choosing their next piece. Now, Berliner also says that most teachers stop at competence. It's somewhere about 5 years. So if we were to stretch the notion of teacher education as being over the lifetime of a teacher, what would it look like to move the teachers towards proficient, which he talks about as more intuitive, and then the expert teacher? Now, I want to tell you a story that Berliner told when he first proposed this way back in, I'm going to say it was like 1986, when I heard him first talk about this. He said that that at the University of Arizona, where they were developing the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, they would bring the best teachers they heard of, like Jaime Escalante. They didn't bring him, but they brought people like that to Arizona. And they put them in a special classroom, and they brought kids in, and he said it took just a few minutes, maybe a half hour. And then the teachers were knocking at the door and saying, I can't do this. Now, they had reputations for being fantastic teachers. And one of the things that they pulled on from this research that they were doing was, we know how to teach in a context. Teaching is not like white bread. It develops in relationship with the learner. And it's one of the really hard parts about doing this online work that a lot of us are doing, is we have to make that connection with the learner, because the learner's the one who puts the stuff together. Okay, so here we are, backward design. We want this wonderful teacher. How do we get there? And so I think that I want to think about who that wonderful teacher is. And I think about a person who has a specialized knowledge about the content in which they're teaching and about the pedagogy for doing that. Schulman calls that pedagogical content knowledge. But people have taken that even further into content knowledge for teaching. So mathematicians, they have all sorts of, something like TK, PCK, whatever. Okay. Then there is, I think, a notion of theory and practice coming together. And I look at action research as the way in which that happens. That if teachers are inquiring about their practice and asking something about what they're doing, that is, theory and practice are going to come together, because they're going to want to know what others are saying about this. I think programs that build this in, almost like a muscle, so that by the time you leave, you are so accustomed to doing this kind of work that it becomes part of your practice, are essential. A third marker would be a lifelong learner, somebody who is always doing that kind of inquiry, always talking about this work. And a fourth would be that they would stay in teaching. Now, that last piece is one of the most difficult pieces, and it has everything to do with who the learning community is. So I don't think we can prepare teachers who are going to be these critical thinkers, lifelong learners, unless we engage as a community of learners to do this. And unless they find themselves in places where people are talking about the work that they're doing. Now, Ingersoll's work is very interesting to me. He happens to be a good friend because I'm at Penn. But what he keeps showing is that many teachers, particularly from a program like the one we have at Penn, where we profess to prepare people for hard-to-staff urban schools, they will go and choose those schools, and they will stay if they have a degree of autonomy and if they have a group of colleagues. They will not stay if neither of those things are there. So if we treat them as automatons that just need to follow the book and follow the script, it is not going to happen. We will never get the high-level teachers. The other piece to bear in mind is that we're looking towards schools of the future, towards shifting schools. Most of our students have never seen what we're looking for, what we would like to have. How do we get them there? We have to do this piece of understanding about knowledge building and being ready to talk about what could be, to put them in places where they see teaching working, where they see teachers want to be in school, but also to expose them to new ways of doing things. Really hard to build into a 1-year, 2-year, even 4-year program. When I was at NYU, I loved doing undergraduates. It was like going west. Nobody paid attention to it, and the thing was I had them for 4 years. By the time they left, they were wonderful. But that is very rare now. So how do you carry this on? You carry it into the time beyond their being there. Okay, one of the big questions then becomes, how do you assess as they're moving through? So what comes at the end of the time they're with you in the teacher ed program? What comes in the second year? What comes in the third year? And are they ready in the 5th year? I don't think you can do this by yourself as a teacher ed program. I think instead you have to develop a community of schools who are willing to work with you. Now, there was a time that I was on the market looking for a deanship. And one of the things that people would ask me what do you do? When people interviewed me, they would say, how would you like to see our school described? And I would say to them, I would like to hear the schools in your immediate neighborhood talk about you as our school of ed. To be engaged with the school in a variety of ways, not just the teacher ed program, but the university itself, but certainly the teacher ed program. Now, I've been able to, at the University of Pennsylvania, we have a couple of experiments going on, and one is providing support for our students in the first year of teaching. So all of our students who stayed in Philadelphia are getting support in their first year. Philadelphia is also giving support, but we have somebody who sees them every single week. Thank you, Woodrow Wilson, for that. But the second piece is we have developed a partnership with a school in the poorest part of Philadelphia, Kensington Health Sciences. This is a high school focused on the health sciences. And we now have the nursing school, the social work school and the School of Ed there. This is messy work, but we have a commitment to this kind of work. And who the teachers become in that school has everything to do with who the leader of the school is and what is going on in that school. So there's constant conversation back and forth. To date, we're new enough that we haven't had any fights. But I know the fights will come, because part of developing partnership is being able to trust each other and to move through some of these difficult things. But the dream is that Kensington will start to pull that community together, focused on the health sciences, in ways that really have the school serving the community and Penn a really strong partner in that. And that's where I think teacher ed needs to go. The other piece is that I'd like to see scaffolded in backward design. You look at scaffolding the performances so that you gradually get better. Charlotte Danielson's work has been extremely powerful for us because there is a way to read the general criteria that they have into the steps that you expect of people at different points. So I think you could use something like that to move you towards national board certification. So I think I'm not going to take too long. I'll give you one more example of a school. Okay, all right. So where I would like to see us end up is new models of teacher education that see it as a partnership with schools in the preparation of teachers. I would like to see ongoing learning among new teachers, and actually all the teachers in a building. And the third piece would be teacher-educator learning. Most people have not been prepared to be teacher educators, and that's the work I think that Marla was talking about that I'm doing now.